I grew up playing video games and watching movies, but I never truly thought that the two would ever intersect in a way that wasn't gimmicky. Baby Ned couldn't imagine a mere YouTuber having the power to make a great movie based on a game. But when Markiplier released his movie Iron Lung, based on David Szymanski's game, I knew I had to see it. To say I was excited is an understatement, as this movie didn't just have the opportunity to be great for video game adaptations, but it was also a statement to Hollywood that the status quo was genuinely changing. YouTubers can make movies, good ones. Iron Lung is the proof. And for those of you who want to know the lore of the game itself and how that compares to the movie, you found the right place. In this video, I'm going to first talk about the game Iron Lung's lore, and then we'll cover the lore of Markiplier's movie and kind of compare the two. What is the mysterious world of Iron Lung all about? What the hell happened during the Quiet Rapture? And how lore accurate is the movie? Let's find out. Grab your popcorn and your fire extinguisher, and let's dive into the blood ocean of lore that surrounds Iron Lung. The history of humanity in Iron Lung's universe differs greatly from our own. Technology in this universe is far more advanced than the technology that we have, and it became advanced far earlier in time in the game. For example, the humans of the Iron Lung universe were able to create their first off-Earth colony in 1992 AD on Mars, something we have yet to do and may never do. With this Martian colony being on a different planet, using the Earth's calendar year didn't make sense. This led to the invention of the Epoch of Interplanetary Colonization, or EIC, basically an interstellar calendar. So 1992 AD became 0 EIC. As time passed, Mars became the most populated planet in our solar system, even surpassing Earth in 143 EIC. Things were relatively normal. That was until the Quiet Rapture. The Quiet Rapture was an anomaly that occurred during 357 EIC. This Quiet Rapture involved every habitable planet and every star vanishing in an instant. All life was gone except for the people on the starships or space stations that were left behind. With limited supplies and resources, these final humans were left in search of natural resources in a universe of barren moons lit by the ghost light of vanished stars. Quick science lesson, stars are light years away. That means the light that we see from them is not current light from the stars, but light that traveled years to get to our eyes. So while the people left over from the Quiet Rapture might be able to see these stars, the stars are no longer there. The traces of their light are all that remain. Every moment that passes, humans are one step closer to complete and total darkness. The stars they see are mere ghost light, growing dimmer by the day. As humans typically do, different factions formed from the remaining people. Something important to the division of these human factions is caused by Mars' space station, Eden. Eden was the largest man-made structure that still existed in this universe. The 468 people of Eden displayed intense Martian patriotism and independence. They refused to use the EIC, instead using their own special interstellar Martian calendar, the IMC. A lot of calendars going on. So basically, these Eden Martians are not willing to team up with the other people because they think that they're superior. Eden also has the only known remaining trees in its interior garden. How do they have these trees? Well, we can speculate the trees, humans, and other life on these man-made objects weren't able to be raptured. The Eden people also have beef with another group of humans, the Consolidation of Iron. The Consolidation of Iron, or COI, are described in-game as a brotherhood of 3 space stations and 2 spacecrafts, found on the principle of collectivism and ruled by the popular vote of all citizens. There are 257 citizens in the COI as far as we're aware. One of the COI's stations, Filament Station, was the location of a 9-day battle between the COI and Eden in 362 EIC. There was no conclusion to the battle, as the Eden troops resorted to sabotaging the station's reactor, resulting in a breach. This breach led to high levels of radiation, making Filament Station uninhabitable. Prisoners taken during the conflict have been undergoing conviction realization in the years since, with the final ones expected to repay their debts and integrate into COI society by 381 EIC. The goal of the battle between these two groups is unclear. Perhaps the Eden people were trying to colonize the station. At any rate, the Filament Station resulted in less habitable space for all of humanity and marked a permanent distrust between the two groups. These Eden prisoners' crimes for essentially destroying the station are repaid by doing conviction realization, which is essentially community service for the COI. Prisoners would perform surveys, maintenance, or other similarly beneficial tasks for the general collective. Some of these tasks are on the moons the COI own. Speaking of which, the COI have control of 2 moons, AT5 and Z8. These moons aren't your average moons though, because they have blood oceans on them. And I'm not just talking about any blood. They have human blood, oceans of it. That's disgusting. How or why the human blood stays in its liquid form on the moons, or where it comes from, is still unknown. Though there are 4 moons with blood oceans as far as the COI is aware, AT5 holds a mystery unlike the others that they're working towards uncovering, a trench with special points of interest. The COI appear to have researchers on the team, but allocate the use of convicts, or prisoners, to expedition into these blood oceans for their research. These convicts are operating under the guise that they're working for their freedom, but in actuality, the researchers are just using them as expendable tools to get more data. Convicts are welded into poorly manufactured burner submarines and sent to the depths to take pictures of what lies below, risking their lives for the research they know nothing about. The researchers, on the other hand, save the best submarine for themselves, the SM-8. This submarine was only operated by researchers and was specially made for navigating the bloody depths. But the SM-8 met a cruel end in this trench, not by a leak or by hitting a rock, but by being ripped apart. Broken into pieces in a corner of the trench, the SM-8 marked the first moment of planetary life discovered since the Quiet Rapture. The COI lost their safest submarine and one of their researchers, leaving them with just their burner subs and a thirst for knowledge. This is where you, the player, comes in. You're welded into the SM-13, nicknamed the Iron Lung, one of the last 3 burner subs. Whatever lives in the bloodied trench is the last hope for the COI and all humans left in the universe. It's the only thing telling them that life can exist in this new world. But it doesn't answer the question of whether or not humans will be able to live with it. So with all that knowledge and context, how does the game play? Well, you're confined to this tight iron space with navigation controls in the front, a fire extinguisher in the middle, and a photo operation and terminal in the back. With your map in hand and its 9 points of interest, you work your way through the ocean as it's kind of the only thing you can do. The gameplay is fairly simple, but the silence, broken only by abrupt sounds, are eerie. Each point of interest is definitely interesting. Traces of bones and skeletons, warm-looking things, possible architecture, and this light thing. Oh, and of course the blood anglers, as I'll call them. So cute. As you traverse this trench, you might hit something, or at least the submarine shakes like you hit something.
Okay.
Upon further investigation, you might notice your coordinates are completely different than the coordinates you had before the impact. That's because you teleported. While we know you teleported on a physical plane, it's unclear if you teleported in time as well. Weird. Anyway, on my first playthrough, I had taken pictures of 8 of the 9 points of interest and found myself going on a straight shot from one coordinate to another, but an ominous beeping stopped me. That's nice. Yeah, so I don't know who the hell that guy is, but they did not like you waking them up. Blood starts seeping into your SM-13 as you approach the 9th point of interest. You get to the right spot, find the right angle, now to click the photo button. Yeah, so the game lets you find 8 of these points of interest, but not all 9 in one playthrough. You're doomed to die in this ocean with no rescue. The game leaves a lot open to interpretation. It doesn't give you a definitive explanation for the cause of most life to evaporate, but in its place, these blood oceans appeared, and so too did the great beasts that inhabit them. The COI are likely to send more burners in to find out what happened to the SM-8 and 13, as this is the only new piece of information they have. These entities appear to be the last living creatures in the universe. I have my own little theory for the cause of life to thanostab out of existence. The start of the universe is referred to as the Big Bang, right, where life just kind of blew up into being. There's a good chance that in 357 EIC or 2349 AD, some kind of un-Big Bang occurred. This un-Big Bang was the destruction of all living things from the stars to the habitable planets to all life that existed on them. This was sort of a universal reset. The things that remained were space stations, spaceships, moons, and asteroids. The man-made objects that were not attached to planets essentially acted as shields for the life inside of them from this theoretical un-Big Bang. They were unable to be affected or swallowed by it. Moons are products of astral collisions and years of manufacturing, so due to them being products of destruction, they aren't able to be reversed. These manufactured entities were left over as life was reset, though that doesn't explain why the blood appeared on the moons. And you know what also doesn't explain the blood? The movie. Now, before we begin, I just want to preface that if you haven't seen the movie, I highly encourage you to watch it. I'll be spoiling a lot of it in this video, and I really think you should see the movie before watching the rest. Not only will you be supporting an independent film and Mark, but you'll also be watching an absolutely incredible movie. You've been warned. Alright, so the movie, what's going on? In the Iron Lung film, made by Markiplier, we still get the original game's story, with some very fun and creative interpretations that build further on it. The opening scene to the movie establishes that we're on a deployment, a descent into AT-5, just like in the game. Controlling the vessel is a convict named Simon, though you don't learn his name until much later. Unlike in the game, a radio exists on the top left of the submarine. A feminine voice, the captain, tells Simon he is the first to explore the blood ocean in this submarine, and that he should just do his job so he can come back to the surface. Simple, right? As the submarine descends, the radio begins to cut out and Simon is left alone in the iron box at the bottom of the blood ocean. Simon checks his surroundings, and the layout of the cabin resembles that of the game. He does not have any indicated points of interest on his map, but instead he has to navigate around with some basic controls and a compass beeping to indicate something in close proximity to him. He can take pictures to see what's in front of him, and his goal is to take pictures of anything strange. In Simon's exploration, he discovers a large skeleton. He ascends the blood ocean a little to communicate his discovery via radio, and he's then pulled up by the COI so they can see proof that he actually, in fact, saw a skeleton. The COI researchers look at the picture of the skeleton and excitedly attach a spear to the front of the submarine, the new goal being to retrieve a part of the skeleton so they may use its samples for research. Simon freaks out that they're not explaining anything to him and that they won't refill his oxygen, which had gone down earlier. In an act of defiance and fear, he presses the photo button to get their attention, but the photo taken shows skeletons, not people. The researchers curse at him in anger, and the captain explains to Simon that photos can't be taken in blood, so the machine is an X-ray imaging device, and he just blasted the 3 researchers with intense radiation. The captain then takes Jack, the person who is welding the sub's spear, to the medical wing after putting a second researcher in charge while he's gone. From there, the researcher, David, descends Simon back into the blood ocean. Simon apologizes and says he didn't know since they didn't explain it to him. It's around this time when Simon finds a note from someone who came before him, telling him to cross some wires. That's this guy's whole thing, by the way. He's mentioned in the credits as the guy who told you to cross the wires. Simon learns that he wasn't the first person to be sent into this blood ocean, and that the COI don't care if the ship or the person operating it come back. They only care about learning more of what's down there. The person tells Simon he's basically dead already. Simon hears the freak-ass sounds of something alive and ascends to tell the captain that he isn't alone down there. The captain basically tells him that he can come back up with a sample, a sort of don't care, didn't ask attitude. Once Simon reaches the skeleton, he rams into it with full force, collecting a sample. He begins his ascent once more, but this time a great beastly noise shakes the iron lung, and Simon is thrown around the metal box. He wakes up concussed, the power is out, and he needs to turn it back on with the emergency engine restart in a crawl space under the deck. He checks his coordinates and finds out he's nowhere on the map that he received. To make things worse, his sub has been slowly corroding with blood leaks, droplets seeping through. The only hope of his survival is to get back to where he started and contact the COI. In his travels of the trenches, he finds a wrecked submarine, the SM-8. He has no authorization to access its black box, so he can't retrieve the information from it. He continues on and hears a voice. A woman calls in desperation to him. He talks with her for a while, and she tells him how they're all dying down there. Then he realizes he's hallucinating when the voice says his name. He never told her his name. This hallucination is the consciousness of the beasts in the blood. The voice appears to be this cultish rapture blood creature, telling him he must join them in the blood and death, and that is how he will know peace. The voice tells him that the only life left is with them. Succumb to the blood type shit. Simon isn't having it and wakes up from the hallucination to the captain's voice. The captain is shocked that Simon's still alive as he's been MIA for days. Perhaps he was teleported through time and space during his hallucination. She tells Simon she can't save him, but then Simon reveals he saw the SM-8, which quickly changes her mind. The captain is frothing at the mouth and wants that SM-8's black box because it could reveal all of the information of the trenches. Simon agrees to go back and get it in exchange for his freedom, and the captain tells him that she will personally go down in a sub to save him if he gets the information and comes back in 30 minutes. The captain then tells David to retrieve Jack to fix up one of the subs ASAP because she is going down. Simon speedrun hallucinates back to the SM-8 and gets the info, but the captain's vessel is destroyed. The blood monster doesn't want the information to get back to the surface, so it slowly destroys Simon's pod too. Simon has to fight this urge to survive to save the rest of humanity and sacrifice himself for the greater good, all as flashbacks and audio from Filament Station play in his head. In the end, Simon uses a life vest to wrap around the black box with all the information and a sash from his clothing to keep it together before the submarine implodes inside the jaws of the creature, seemingly killing it. The final shot of the film shows the black box and life vest bobbing along the surface of the bloody sea, proving that the Data survived. God, cinema. So now that we understand the story from both, what are the main differences between the game and the movie? If you've already seen it, you're probably wondering at this point if there are any major discrepancies between the two. First and foremost, the main difference here is that the game is considered canon, whereas the movie is not, at least not to the game. The movie is a separate canon, as David Szymanski clarified on X back in 2023. They're basically considered as their own distinct universes. Beyond the film being an entirely different medium from the game, it of course had a much larger budget, and the sound design, acting, and VFX show that, among so many other incredible things the film does. While Iron Lung the movie features a main character named Simon, the player character in the game has no name. But both you, the player in the game, and Simon in the film are considered convicts. While Simon's reason for being a convict in the movie is that he's linked to Eden's attack and subsequent destruction of Filament Station, the game doesn't have an explanation for the player's actions, at least not directly. We could have stolen a loaf of bread or killed 20 people. I honestly couldn't find anything that gives a concrete answer. In the game, the only person we hear from verbally is the voice at the beginning, when we descend. We do have the note from a previous convict, but it doesn't have the same impact as hearing the note narrated from the person like in the film. The scale and impending doom in the movie seems a lot larger because of the addition of more people. The fate of humanity relies on every action of Simon. Every action is the difference between life and death for not just Simon, but the captain, Jack, and David. Both the game and movie add suspense with sound and visualization of the Iron Lung's deterioration, the movie doing this especially well due to its budget and scale. The game, on the other hand, adds suspense by showing bursting pipes of air and water, fire erupting in the cabin, and the ominous creaking of the hull as you continue your mission. In the movie, this is shown with condensation, the dripping of water, and even dripping blood as the hull begins to crumble under the impending pressure. Fire, too, breaks out onto the submarine, and as the movie progresses, the metal appears to bubble in areas of the hull from the blood, pressure, or both. The film also makes great use of cinematography techniques like match cuts, as well as heavy symbolism in its visual language, and there are a lot of shots that are just really great to look at. There's so much visually with color and framing to keep you engaged, even though the whole movie is a single set. The repetitive nature of the actions of the movie give it structure, while paying homage to the game's own repetitive nature. The movie makes good use of time skips, though it isn't like jump cut galore, but you can feel how tedious and draining both physically and mentally the whole thing is for Simon. Both the game and movie also have their own funny little blood angler picture moments. The gradual decrease in clothing on Simon visually shows his discomfort and descent into madness, as well as the increase in temperature. The switching back and forth between reality and hallucination and lack of oxygen makes you, as an audience member, equally as confused and uneasy as Simon himself. Another really interesting difference is the light anomaly and the use of religious ideals. In the game, the light anomaly is separate from this concept of religion. Some people saw the quiet rapture as a religious rapture, while others didn't and believed it was a scientific anomaly. The light anomaly appears in the game and warps the visuals of the Iron Lung, but it doesn't cause any intrinsic damage to the submarine. However, in the movie, the light is seen as a religious entity. The voice from the bloody depths is trying to essentially convert Simon into giving into despair and joining them in this bloody afterlife. The movie also seems to make the blood itself a living creature by doing this. The blood seems to have a mind of its own, and it consumes everything it touches. The blood coagulates and spreads like some sort of liquid tree root. The convergence of all of these ideas adds this sort of all-consuming evil, a source of danger that is consistent but changes as the movie progresses. Another huge difference between the game and the movie is that while Simon does die at the end, his death happens only after he has a significant moment of character growth and his actions lead to the black box containing invaluable data, making it to the surface to then be discovered by what's left of humanity. The film gives us hope. On the other hand, the game has a different idea of an ending. It's abrupt, a little freaky, and most of all, devoid of hope. The game wants you to know that you're expendable, and that you ultimately did little to save humanity. It's an ending that is as unsatisfying as it is cryptic, because despite your death meaning very little, the game makes you wonder, could I have done something different? Would it have made a difference? Above all else, by far the biggest difference between the game and the movie, though, is between you, the player, and Simon. But why is this difference so important? Simon as a character is pivotal to what makes this movie so good. Like with most movies, the main character, in terms of writing, can entirely make or break the experience. If you have a flat, boring character, the story will fall flat too. If you have too much going on with a character, it can be confusing for the audience and leave more questions than answers, leading to the story being a confusing mess. Needless to say, the writers for this movie cooked. Iron Lung introduces a very balanced character that grows and changes as the movie progresses. They introduce us to a character that doesn't know anything, so the stakes are low for both the character and the audience. For those of us who have no knowledge of the game, the main character, Simon, is incredibly relatable. He's just as clueless as we are. Our feelings coincide with his. The more information he gains and the greater his fear, the greater our own. Something really simple that gave me a sigh of relief was Simon writing "fuck you" into the terminal at the beginning of the movie after a bunch of other things he typed didn't work out. This felt like an extremely human moment and made me relate to the character. The movie does a good job of pacing out the information it gives you, since it doesn't drop insane lore all at once. It lets you dip your toes into the blood ocean and feel it out. The slow burn of Simon's backstory coinciding with the main story also adds this cool transition from us seeing ourselves as the main character into us transitioning back into the audience. The writing of Simon as a character makes him feel like a very real person that's relatable. We see his strengths, navigation, and resourcefulness, as well as his weaknesses, like his impulsiveness and self-preservation. We also see that he feels remorse and guilt for his actions, like from when he accidentally radiates the people in the COI with the Iron Lung, and with his flashbacks to Filament Station. Speaking of which, the game's telling of the Filament Station comes from the perspective of the COI. The movie's, on the other hand, has to be inferred from the limited visuals and dialogue that reference it. As we mentioned before, Simon is a convict because of his involvement with Filament Station. From the language used during these flashbacks and the context from the game, I think it's safe to assume that Eden and the people from it are in a sort of cult. My interpretation is that their extreme nationalism led the people of Eden to sabotage Filament Station in hopes of making the COI join them. Something we learn about Simon very early on is that while he cares about people, his main goal is his own survival. The addition of the captain and crew to the movie give us a demonstration of Simon's traits and beliefs as opposed to expository dialogue. The movie could have just had Simon say, "Oh, you know, I care about people not getting hurt, but at the same time, my health and safety is my greatest priority." Instead, the movie lets the audience come to these conclusions themselves with the actions and consequences of Simon. The addition of the captain was also a great use, since she is the defining force that helps Simon work through his me-first mentality, eventually getting him to care about something bigger than himself. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for Simon's growth as a character. The addition of the black box in the underbelly of the ship also adds to his growth, as it visually demonstrates his willingness to go through immense pain at the climax of the movie, leading to the sacrifice of his own life for the greater good. So yeah, TLDR, Simon is the GOAT. For these reasons, I think that while sharing the same fundamental backstories, with a few slight caveats, Iron Lung the game and Iron Lung the movie have very different endings and very different messages attached to those endings. One of them wants you to feel hopeless but still hungry for answers, and the other wants you to feel like you just saw a man go through hell and sacrifice everything for those still left. Whether you prefer the game or the movie's interpretation, both of them are cool as hell and leave you with many different questions, and they both have a glorious blood ocean. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. I want to give a huge thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting what I do. Thanks guys. If you're looking for a community of fellow gamers and lore nerds, come join my Discord in the description below or the pinned comment. For more fun story explained videos, click on this one here. Otherwise, you might enjoy this playlist right over here. Click on one please. I promise you'll like it. Okay, bye.